morning. Wanted to talk today. This is just what came up, and to discuss. I'm not quite sure why. Questions of feminism and egalitarianism. Two things that came up yesterday that to me just show that there are issues with call in and give my perspective, but I had to go to work. I didn't have time. Maybe I could have called in. It didn't seem worth my time or effort to call in. Something my dad would do. He would call Curtis and Kubi and whatever. I think he once told Curtis Sliwa. He said on the radio, and Curtis and Kubi said, this is maybe 15 years ago or something. He said, I have 4 kids, and the one that's the most respectful is the one who went to yeshiva. He said, he's not Jewish, Whatever. That's I don't know if it's really true, but that's what he said. And it's nice that he said that. Now, excuse me, I'm still not quite awake. It's interesting. They said, she's a feminine icon, and there's all these different things that they said. And it's offensive to someone who can't have children, or someone who chooses not to have children. Now, you have to understand there's a difference between someone who can't have children and someone who chooses not to have children. I mean, that should be obvious to anybody, and I don't know enough about her, but I don't think she's trying to be mean-spirited and offensive to people who, for no fault of their own, can't have children. And I don't think she was trying to be mean-spirited either to those who choose not to. I think she's merely expressing her own sentiments about womanhood and having children. I don't think she was making a judgment call to other people. She was just talking about her own way. I was talking to my wife about this morning. She said, isn't feminism about doing what you want and not having to conform to a standard? And we often discussed about the difference between the first wave feminists, the second wave feminists, the third wave feminists. My wife usually says that the Hasidic women, the Satmar women, Babaver, Kloisenberger, the Vishnitzer, I'm not talking about Chabad, or hippie Breslov and things like that, but like the real regular Hasidic women are, she said, they're first wave feminists. Excuse me. Sometimes the Breslover, they go into that direction, but I brought that up in some of the first wave feminism was just about voting, I mean, the thing is, if you look at those communities, the women there run everything. Like my wife says, the men there, they serve very little purpose, and they don't really tell their wives what to do either, for the most part. I mean, maybe this is, she knows. The women have their own society, like the Gemara says, that the women are like a nation unto themselves. They're like they're their own people, they're their own nation. And in a way, feminism is like female nationalism in a way, but particularly when they're embracing the femininity. So here you have, like the Hasidic communities, the women are extremely feminine. They embrace what it means to be a woman, and a major part of that is motherhood. Excuse me. That's a major part of their lives. But these are women who they're holding their own. They are not that it's, a lot of people believe it's poverty by design, and we don't believe that. We believe that entrepreneurism is generally a focus, in the Hasidic community, because it's often said like this: if you work for someone else, then your blessings from God have to be filtered through someone else's blessings. And so your success depends on your boss's success. If you are an entrepreneur, so if God wants to bless you, He can bless you directly. He doesn't need to bless your boss first. I think that's something I've heard. Now, it's not really, dogma. But it's an ideology that's common in the Haredi world, in the working Haredi world. And God will bless your businesses or whatever that you have, based on your piety and based on, what God wants for you. Meaning, if God wants you to have a job, He'll send you a job. If God wants you to have a successful business, He'll send it to you. And I've seen so many stories of people who had no plans of any businesses, and something just fell into their lap, and they're extremely wealthy, and then they're supporting other people, and they're, that's how it is. And if they're, sometimes they'll start their own businesses to accommodate the schedules of the Hasidic and Orthodox communities and things like that. And so forth. That's and even I've seen in my own life, I don't make a tremendous amount of money, but I'm below the poverty line legally, by virtue of my total income, but the poverty line right now is pretty high, and also I live a pretty modest lifestyle, so I'm pretty comfortable, thank God. And even in what's legally defined as poverty here in America, pay my bills and whatever, I don't have to worry that much. And maybe, God willing, I'll find another job soon, and I'll no longer be under the poverty line. We'll see. I don't know. We can be hopeful. We can pray. In any event, I've seen in my life, how every wedding that I book is exactly ordained by God. Every penny that I spend, every dollar I spend on it is ordained by God. And even when I have certain months when I have a net loss, but I see the hand of God in this ministry, so it's something I enjoy very much, and it's a lesson in faith. Same thing every day. Driving to work is a lesson in faith. Like now, I'm running kind of late. I should have left earlier. Hopefully I'll make it at a decent time. Now, back to this issue of feminism. You know, I definitely support the ideals, certainly of first-wave feminism, and it's not just about voting. Even though I disagree with the methods of the temperance movement, particularly prohibition, was probably one of the biggest mistakes that America made, and it's really a lesson of the foolishness of the progressive movement. I mean, really, prohibition was a progressive ideal. It was a right-wing progressive ideal. You know, Glenn Beck points out there were progressives on the right and on the left. I'm not a teetotaler. I do enjoy a drink usually on Shabbos every now and then. Not every Shabbos, once in a while. But the ideals of temperance, certainly a major aspect of it was, certain men, they would go and drink every night, and they come home and they beat their wives, and something had to be done about it. And it didn't really help, didn't really work. A lofty goal, and it was a distinctly feminist goal. Meaning it wasn't the first wave feminists who were usually also temperance, prohibitionists, Carrie Nation, was a feminist, but also a major temperate, was a temperist and a prohibitionist, and a terrorist also. And so certainly I don't agree with her terrorism. I mean, that was horrible. And the things that she wanted to take place they didn't work. But, when they finally implemented them, decades later, it was a disaster. Although it was a lesson for the country, but it was a horrible, horrible disaster, prohibition. And the social engineering by the state, it doesn't really work. But it has to come organically in grassroots. The churches can affect the society the way the federal government can't, basically. So, but it was a decidedly feminist movement, because the women who were pushing this felt that as women, have a message for the world, have leadership duties in the world, have a responsibility to embrace their femininity and use it as their requirement of service and leadership. drunk like the men, even though, by the time the 20s came around, the flappers, this and that, it was a different society. When the early feminists were not saying, let's go be like the men. Early feminists were like, we have to be women, right? Now you have men who want to be women and women who want to be men, and it's an upside down situation. It's not, it's not embracing who you are, but rather saying what you want to be and appropriating what you want to be. So this so we go back to the story with, I don't remember, it was Venus Williams, Serena Williams, I don't care, saying that she's finally being a woman because she's, God willing, going to have a child. She's going to be a mother. Now, is that insulting and is that anti-feminist? And it's, on one hand, it's like my wife said, it should be nobody's business how she expresses her feminism. I think if she has a different expression of feminism than other feminists, they should all agree to that. But my perspective, based on things that my wife said, particularly about the feminism of the Hasidic women, I mean, they're definitely much more. Again, people say, well, why aren't there that many women? They go to work, but they're not professionals. But there are more and more, and it seems like there are more Haredi women who are professionals than Haredi men who are professionals. And not only that, but it tends to be that the Haredi men who are professionals tend to be Balei Tshuva, but the regular from birth Haredi women are often professionals. And it's not a tremendous amount, but there are Haredi women who are doctors and lawyers and politicians, and there are men as well, but it seem to be more women who are professionals in the Haredi world, and certainly entrepreneurs and all these various, there's a woman, Chani Newberger, she grew up in the Satmar community and she still identifies to a certain extent there. She's from Brooklyn, it's a little different than Williamsburg, alright, but she's a big shot in the NSA, So, she's been, working her way through the system for years, and she does her job well, and that's how it is, And of course, we all know Ruchi Fryer now is a judge, and it's a big sense of nachas, really, for Klal Yisrael, for the Hasidic community. You have a Hasidic woman, whether they say Hasidic or Baba Chassidus, like a real Hamish Hasidic, and she's a judge, and she's a lawyer, and she does all these things, but she's also a mother and a baba, and she does kiruv work, and she's a powerhouse. It's a big set, and it's a my daughters should grow up and strive to be something like that. To show that you can be whatever you want. And my wife, I mean, we don't come from the Hasidic backgrounds, but we both do our best that equation is still being a mother and so forth. You know. So, you know, what do we get out of this? And what are we talking about here? So here's the next, you know, maybe it's not so right, and maybe I'm going to offend people, but like, I look around, you know, and I see people who don't come from Orthodox backgrounds, or maybe who do, and who left, or whatever, and they, you know, in various jobs I've had and so forth, I see people who are close to my parents' age, and their oldest children are around my oldest children's age. You know, they're a little bit, meaning these people, they're professionals, and they're very successful, and they're doctors and lawyers and teachers, and they've accomplished so much in their life, but they waited until they were like 40 years old to have kids, you know, like, and it's like, you know, they finally woke up and realized, you know, oh, you know what, maybe it's time to have kids, you know. And it's like, you know, is there, you know, we you know, in our circles, what I would hear in yeshiva and so forth is that there's a certain amount of selfishness in that, meaning people, they want to have fun and enjoy their single life, and they want to enjoy their married life, not having children. First of all, they wait very late before they get married, and then they're married already, and then they wait till they have children. You know, it's to me, it's just like, it's shocking. I mean, you know, my parents are not religious, and not, you know, Orthodox. My mother grew up Orthodox, but, you know, she married out and that, you know, and like, which I'm not judging, I'm just saying, but she was, you know, when I became a father, I was older than when my mother became a mother. No, that's not true. About the same age. Maybe I was younger. I don't know. Or my mother first. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's neither here nor there. But it's about around the same age, meaning, you know, not much older. And I don't know, obviously certain people, you know, they have a hard time finding someone to marry, and then when they're married, they have a hard time having children. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who make a conscious decision that they're going to wait to get married. They make a conscious decision, once they're married, they're going to wait to have children. And why do they do that? There are reasons to do it, you know. I mean, certain people who I know who did that was the right thing, you know. I mean, I remember, what's his name, from Riverdale, Rav Willig. So Rav Willig, he said, you know, he's very lenient on birth control after the first child. He said that first child, it's kind of arrogant to suppose, you know, to start off the marriage on birth control, because how do you know you can have children at all? And think of all the people who are struggling to have children, and so whatever. One friend of mine, I mentioned that to him, he said, well, thankful, and he was recently married, I think, or maybe he was engaged, or I'm not sure. He said, thankfully, Rav Willig was not his Paisik. And So Baruch Hashem, it worked out for him, So it is what it is, Everybody has their own thing, but it's it's not so simple. This is how people approach this, and everybody, all right, God's in control, is everything, how it works. had to, but again, everybody has their own issues in life. But again, we're not talking about people who it's out of their choice, but rather people who made it. Obviously this person, he wanted to get married younger. He couldn't find anybody. It's a difficult, it's an uphill battle. He had a difficult life, but he made something out of himself, and he was quite successful. But again, you could have a frank discussion about these things. And again, I don't care what people do. We generally say we're not proselytizing religion, quote unquote, even though maybe we are, whatever. That's neither here nor there. And that's the story. But to me, you can be the professional, you can be the lawyer, you can be the NSA agent, you can be the doctor, and also be a mom. Someone else we know in our community, the husband, he was a Rav and it didn't work out. Now he's sitting learning in Koilel, and he doesn't have to worry about working because his wife is a successful pediatrician and she has her own practice, and they have a whole lot of kids and grandkids and so forth, and also they have like 10 kids, that's how it is. So anyway, this is just a situation in the world. That being said, issue I wanted to talk about that came up was in my job, one of my jobs, so I'm a chaplain in a nursing home, and whatever it was, we had a situation where I guess, even though I'm not the senior chaplain, but I guess I'm kind of the head chaplain, strangely enough, even though I'm the newest on the team. I only really have a lot of interface with one of the chaplains, who's, meaning we have a team of, I guess, 5 chaplains, and 3 of them are only coming, occasionally. One of them comes in once a week, and 2 of them come in twice a month. And then we have myself and the other main chaplain who come in, 4 days a week. Be enough for full days, but whatever. I put in whatever 20 hours, and the other chaplain puts in probably 15 hours, maybe 20 hours, I'm not sure. And we're part of a team, and I guess essentially I'm the head chaplain, but I kind of defer to the others who have more experience than me. So we have one other Jewish chaplain who's a cantor or cantorial student, a young woman who comes in once a week. And the place where I worked, it changed hands recently, and they had a bigger budget for religious services. And what it turned out was that this chaplain who comes in once a week, Shabbos morning, this cantorial student is making more for a 45-minute service she does once a week than I make a whole week working 20 hours a week. So they said they can't afford it. So have a student who wants to come, you know, once a week and provide services, and that is what it is. So it happened. The one that contacted me was a young woman, and so we're making an interview today. So then, so first of all, I was talking to the other one who first he wanted a job, he interviewed, and he decided he couldn't do it. He couldn't make a commitment to this and that, and I really didn't know. He said, well, I feel on a rise to get rid of this other one, a responsibility. I said, I don't see why it's a responsibility. It's just, it happens that the place can't afford what she, if she was willing to take a pay cut, or if they had more money, or whatever it is, they would work it out, So, there's other issues there, whatever it is. So then, but it's not like, I don't feel like I have to get rid of this person, neither because she's a woman, and not because she's not orthodox. I don't feel I have to get rid of her. This other person who had no connection to the job felt like, he had to take the job in order to get rid of her. Like, what do you mean get rid of her? Like, who cares? I don't know. It boggles my mind how people can be so really whether it's misogyny or it's anti-reform. I don't know. Like, it just, to me, it didn't sit right with me. So then talking to a friend of mine who's not, he's from, but he's not ordained to anything, but I was like, you could do this job. You want the job? He said, no, I don't want the job. He's looking for a job. He's unemployed. It's like, I don't want this job, whatever it is. So, all right. So he doesn't want the job. So, fine. All right. So he doesn't want the job. But I told him, I said, all right, so I'm talking to Yeshiva Maharat, and they're going to send somebody. And then he said, no, you got to wait for a man. You can't have a woman rabbi. I said, why not? Why can't a woman be a chaplain in a nursing home? Anyway, who they have now is a woman. And she's Chal Shabbos. And it would keep her if they could afford her, but isn't it better to have a woman who's a Shomer Shabbos, who's going to walk over and do the job, than to have a Chal Shabbos who's driving, Sof Kol Sof? I mean, all right, it's not really nachrayis, because again, she's going to find another job and still be with Chal Shabbos, so it's not. But I would prefer Shomer Shabbos, but to me, a man or a woman doesn't make a difference. I told this to my wife, and she's like misogyny is still alive. Like, why would this person care if the position were a man or a woman? Like, what difference does it make? Like, who cares? A position like this, there's absolutely no reason why a woman can't be a chaplain in a nursing home. You want to argue on titles, and so she called rabbi, she called maharat, she called rabbah, she called this, she called that, she called reverend. Who cares? I mean, in many ways, women are, as women, and this goes back to my argument from the beginning of the first wave feminism, women are better equipped for a lot of chaplain positions. I wrote an article some years ago where my argument was there are certain positions that need to have women. I used to have a contract with a federal prison, rabbi, whatever, would come once a week or once every 2 weeks, or I don't remember, once a month. I don't remember exactly what it was. And then I saw, I was underbid by like $1 an hour, or like $5 an hour. It was very close, by someone who lived there, a female Reform rabbi. And at first, still my old bigotry, came up, and I was like, but then I looked. I didn't know what kind of prison it was. I thought it was a women's prison. I was like, no, I don't belong there. That's not going to work. That's not where I belong. And then at that point, I realized we need to have some Orthodox women clergy who could serve in a position like this. Meaning, all right, and the thing is the fact is that, to me, a Reform woman rabbi would be better suited for this position than a male Orthodox rabbi. Although, if you have the right type of Orthodox woman clergy, whether you want to call her rabbi or not, a position like this certainly, maybe, all right, so maybe a woman's not up for a shul, but if she could be, for the women, and maybe there should be training for Rebbitzins, and really Rebbitzin essentially just means a female rabbi, like you say a lawyer could, like a doctor could, that's what it really means. It doesn't really mean rabbi's wife. It means a lady rabbi, really. And there were, Hasidic women who were Rebbitzins, who were like Rebbes, and then there were even single women who, essentially served as Rebbes, throughout history, and obviously a woman can't be an Eid Kedushin, she can't give Eid, she can't be a Dayan, because that's the halacha. We can't change that. But other things that women do, that rabbis do, it doesn't matter you're a man or woman, and certainly chaplaincy roles, same thing, whatever, Hillel chaplaincy, in the college, whatever it is, these are roles that, the only reason why discourage is because, men have a hard time finding a job as a rabbi, so now it's going to be more competition because there's women, when you look in the Reform and conservative clergy, and now you have more women than men, I think. You don't have that many men going into rabbinate anymore. It became like a woman's are they done with that construction? Could I park there? I don't know. It became a woman's world, So and so we're afraid of competition. I think that's the real fear there, because there's really no reason to exclude women from these type of roles. And that this friend of mine should say, "Oh, you should wait for a man." That's just pure misogyny. And it's wrong, and we got to overcome that. All right, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment, and we'll talk again later. Be well.